We started moving the feast, so I moved the feast in anticipation because Apostle Andrew falls on Friday and the 30th, so kind of rushing a little bit to have a service for him, which we not do very often.
Well, happy name.
Yeah,
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I wanted just to say a couple of things about where we are in terms of the Nativity fast. It's actually, according to my teacher, it's perfectly fine to call it Advent, because the word Advent means epiphany. It means something that is being revealed, something that is shining forth, bursting through. So, and it's very appropriate. At any rate, and it's shorter than Nativity fast, so we might as well use it. Having said this, we need to keep in mind that this whole season of winter Pascha is rather lengthy. Just consider, it is 88 days long. And it begins, of course, with 40 days of fast, and then we have the time between Christmas or Nativity and Theophany, and then the after feast of Theophany, and then we have the feast of the meeting of the Lord on February 2nd, followed by the after feast of that. So if you look at from the November 15th all the way to, it would be what, February 9th. February 9th, right? So it's supposed to be 88 days. The season begins with, especially in the Slavic tradition, begins with the feast of Saint Philip, which is celebrated on November 14th. And we've had here, so we had the Vespers for it. I was very happy about it. And if you recall, there is something very specific about Philip, and that incredibly important little dialogue between him and Christ, when Philip asked Christ to show us the Father, or make it possible for us to see the Father. And Lord was annoyed with him and said, well, yeah, I've been with you for so long and you don't know me. The one who had seen me had seen the Father. In a sense, it's not just for the reason of chronology that this fast is called the Philip's fast, but primarily because it set the tone of this entire season, and that is to a prayer that God will make it possible for us to see Him. And it's all about seeing. It's all about encountering Christ, who reveals Himself. And that is the theme of this entire 80 days, in fact. I mean, everything that we celebrate, or even all those people also whom we remember, including my own Saint first of all, Apostle Andrew, who actually also said the same thing. Come see. Come see. Come see whether He's Christ. And when they came, remember when they came to Christ and said, well, where do you live? He said, well, come and see. Inviting them to follow. So this is all about Christ revealing Himself, bursting through this ignorance, this darkness, this fallenness, this desert of lifelessness, and abandonment, and exile from paradise. And He comes through so that we are able to see. And the last thing I want to say is this. If you remember, we will, in a short while, a relatively short while, when we start preparing for Great Lent, for the Pascha of the Resurrection of the Lord, the Spring Pascha. So we will discover, and yet again, There's this very moving, I don't know, it's probably not very ancient, but there is so-called part of hymnology of the preparation for Great Lent that is called the lamentation of Adam. So Adam lamenting on the other side of the gates of paradise, and remembering how he walked in the cool of the day with God, and he was able to see him. Now he does not. He is not able to do that. So the whole kind of a heart of that lamentation, the whole very center of it, is inability to see God. And Christ said so himself in the gospel when he said that many prophets were willing to see what you see and could not, or hear what you hear and could not. Again, it's the same theme, isn't it? So it is to be able to perceive God once again. And even that is is again at the heart, at the very center of that salvation, that redemption, that return to paradise where Adam and Eve were able to see him. And then in the fall, you can. And then Christ comes again and says, well, now I bring you the Father. I am here so you can see me, and you can hear me, and you can touch me, and you can even partake of my presence through the sacrament of Eucharist. And this is something that we need to remember. So this is so all these Western notion of Christmas as a season of light, and sometimes you say, well, I mean this, and it has its purpose and meaning because we only can see something in the light. In fact, of course, the notion that Nativity of the Lord was celebrated on the 25th of December, it was not just a coincidental, or it's not based on the fact of alone, the fact of that is 9 months after 25th of March, the Annunciation. But it's because on that day in the Roman Empire, they celebrate the birth of the Sun, S-U-N. And so again, anticipation of the coming of the light. So from that time, roughly, the day started moving, becoming longer. So there was more light and stuff like that. So, and then, of course, we remember the words of Prophet Malachi, who actually coined that statement that is being repeated again and again and again all the way through Christmas, is that he is the Son of Righteousness. He's the Son, S-U-N, of righteousness. And of course there is another, and I encourage you to read the prophet because he's really one of the very unique. And he said, the Son of Righteousness coming on the wings of healing. And for some reason, that strikes my heart. So our eyes have to be healed. We are all blind. And Christ comes, and before we are able to see his countenance, he has to open our eyes. Even though we're all born into that fallen world, and we're just like that man who was born blind, and Christ comes and heals him for the purpose of, for that man being able to see the face of Christ through it, right there, within arm's reach. Remember that wonderful story in the Gospel. So it's all about him coming and bringing us the taste of paradise, the door open into the kingdom of heaven, so that we can see Christ and see his presence as light. And in the book of Revelation, St. John the theologian would say that in the New Jerusalem, in the kingdom of heaven, there would be no lamps and no sun in the sky, and no moon, because the light of God will be everywhere. Everywhere. So the light, and we are able to see in that light. Everything will become visible. And it's a glorious, glorious promise and destiny.